Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of Gravesend Council. Sorry, thank you. So I tend to go through some housekeeping matters this afternoon. So this meeting is live streamed via YouTube and is being recorded. The recording will be uploaded onto YouTube within 2 working days, where it can be accessed by anybody. Members, please use the microphones in front of you when you're talking and ensure you turn your microphone off once you've finished speaking. Another member or officer will not be able to speak if your microphone is still on. Please note that the council's visual equipment may, on some occasions, focus on or near the public gallery, and therefore those in attendance at this meeting may be filmed or recorded. Attendance at this meeting signifies your agreement to this. If, as a member of the public, you do not wish to be filmed or recorded, please inform a council member of staff, and they will try to assist you where reasonably possible. On hearing the fire alarm, we ask all attendees to immediately evacuate the building. Please evacuate via the nearest fire exits and make your way to Community Square outside the main reception doors. Okay, thank you. So we'll start with apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We have no apologies for absence, but I've been advised that Councillor Mee is just running slightly late.
Thank you very much. I would just like to also welcome the panel members who are here with us this evening. They're here as observers, so thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate you coming. Thank you. Declaration of interests. Councillor Milner.
Yes, through the document we're going to look at tonight, 1, I'm a council tenant, and 2, Pinnock's Trust, I think, is being mentioned, and I'm a trustee on that one. And I've just had my bathroom adapted, super duper wet room, absolutely marvellous. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations? No, thank you. Okay, number 5, to consider whether any items in Part A of the agenda should be considered private in Part B, and my understanding is it's not. Number 6, corporate register of partnership and shared services. So who is taking that? Okay, that's Keenan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I assume everyone's had sight of the report. I'm just going to briefly cover it. So it covers an overview of the council's housing-related partnerships, their purpose, financial commitments, and how it contributes to our corporate priorities. I wanted to cover some key partnerships within the register, such as our Rough Sleeping Initiative service, which is the council's multi-agency response to homelessness and rough sleeping in the borough, with a strong focus on health, safeguarding and pathways into housing and employment. We've got a Kent Home Choice on there, which is part of the council's statutory function, which includes the council's housing allocation scheme, or better known as the housing register, and our homelessness service. And Henry Pinnock's, who we are working in partnership with to deliver affordable housing via the local housing fund round 3. From a governance and risk perspective, all partnerships operate under a formal agreement, including service level agreements where appropriate, and risks are managed through grant conditions, financial conditions, reporting, and regular reviews. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Has anyone got any questions or issues they'd like to raise? Okay, thank you. I'd just like to mention item 3, which I left out with the minutes. Has anyone got any questions or issues they'd like to raise about the minutes? Apologies, I didn't do it in sequence. Thank you. Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Move on to item number 7, please. AIDS and adoption presentation. Thank you. Is that Nicole, you taking that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you. So this presentation talks about the Housing Asset Service AIDS and Adaptation team. One of the reasons that I wanted to bring a presentation to committee is that the adaptation service does form part of the consumer standards introduced in 2024. It's also a fantastic service that we provide to our tenants in the borough that we probably don't give enough promotion to. So aids and adaptations are equipment or alterations to the home that help tenants carry out day-to-day activities and may enable them to stay in their home, giving them more freedom. So can be minor adaptations such as grab rails, handrails, lever taps, right the way through to major adaptations such as showers, stair lifts and ramps. So the really important thing I think to draw out is that this is funded through the housing revenue account and not the disabled facilities grant, which I don't think people always fully appreciate. So last year we completed 44 flush floor showers, 3 over bath showers, 20 domestic stair lifts, 12 kitchens and 1 single storey extension to a family home, enabling them to stay in the property rather than the disruption of moving a severely ill child. Already this financial year, we've received 42 requests for flush floor showers from occupational therapy, 7 over bath showers, 22 domestic stair lifts and 10 kitchen adaptations. So earlier this year, the Housing Ombudsman undertook a review of aids and adaptations across the country and OT referrals, looking at cases that had been referred to them, and made 7 headings of good practice. So act early, ensuring that, you know, people do refer quickly and that we refer tenants quickly if we recognise that there is a need. And to cover that, we did change our policy back in 2023 to enable us to do referrals alongside tenants and making sure that they can quickly self-refer to occupational therapy, avoiding potential safeguarding risks. Communicate feasibility. Again, this was incorporated in 2023 in the policy review, that there was a clear process that we would go through to see whether that adaptation was possible and achievable in that property. Finding alternatives. So if an adaptation isn't possible, working really closely with occupational therapy and the neighbourhood officer to find a more suitable property for them, should that be required. Balance with planned works and budgets. So the Housing Ombudsman found that in some cases across the country there was new bathrooms, new kitchens being installed, but then they wasn't being added to a replacement programme longer term. This is something that we actually undertook probably around 10 years ago, where we made sure that as soon as one was installed, it then formed part of a programme. Consider the impact. So I'll come on to this a bit later in the presentation. So Equality Act is a really obvious one to make sure that we are appreciating the referral and the requirements of that, and urgency, so ensuring that most vulnerable cases are dealt with in priority order. So around 18 months ago, we took the decision to review the value of the aids and adaptation work that we was doing. And when I say value, I'm not talking monetary value. It was around the difference it was making to people's lives, not just for them, but for their family, friends, carers as well. So we decided to review the satisfaction survey that was undertaken, so a pre and post survey. And rather than saying, you know, things like, did the contractor turn up on time? Did they wear shoe covers? You know, was there any snags at the end of it? We made a real focus around putting the tenant at the heart of that survey. So we was asking questions beforehand. So, you know, what are their struggles? Who are you relying on support-wise? And then afterwards, what do you think of the adaptation? What benefits have you felt? Do they feel safer? What was the expectations of this, and has it been met? And how was the service provided by the council alongside the contractors? Because obviously, it's, you know, it was really important that we still got feedback in terms of how our contractor was performing throughout that process. So to give you, and this is, I literally picked the first 6 that was on the spreadsheet rather than me sort of weaving out the good ones. They were all really positive. So this one, You know, I can't believe the change. My son doesn't require half as much help as before, and there is no battle anymore. He's much happier and comfortable. Now his privacy, excellent. Everyone was so polite and understanding. This one, I can now shower freely without having to climb over the bath and rely on my son to get me out. I feel much safer now and more independent. The service provided was fantastic. They went above and beyond. My flush floor shower is great. I'm very pleased with it. I now have independence and can fully shower. GBC service was excellent. I'm very pleased, and it's been done perfectly and a great finish. I feel so much safer. I'm so happy with it. I can now bath freely. I'm so happy with the result. This has helped my mood and confidence in showering. It's great improvement for my mental health. The wet room has been life-changing for me. It's the best thing to happen to me. Fantastic. They went beyond and were great. They were hard workers and reliable. I love it. I'm so happy with it. Before I couldn't even shower or bath at my own property. Was having to go to families to use their shower. Now I can shower whenever I want in my own home. It's fantastic, so amazing. I can shower freely without having to climb over the bath. Don't have to rely on my son to help me out. I've got more dignity. The shower lower so I can sit down. I feel so much safer. Thank you. And what I would add on that exercise that we've undertaken with our tenants, the feedback that the team have been receiving has actually really changed how they feel about the job that they're doing as well. You know, they're actually really, before, you know, it's quite easy to, when you're delivering planned work, it's about, you know, having the right budget, getting the contractor there, doing the work, move on to the next one. It can be a bit of a churn. But for them to see the difference that it was actually making to them and seeing that real feedback, it's had a really positive impact on them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Anyone got any questions or anything they'd like to raise? Councillor Peard.
Thank you. I just hope that Councillor Milner had one of her congratulations up there, because that was her wet room, was it?
Thank you.
Actually, I've not had anything from Councillor Milner as yet, so I will get some live feedback.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Councillor Croxton.
Yes, can I say that all the feedback I've received has been very positive, including from Councillor Milner, who seems to have vanished. But only earlier today, she was telling me how delighted she was. And certainly anybody that tenants that I've spoken to, where people have gone in, your operatives have gone in, they've worked extremely well in whatever capacity, not necessarily aids and adaptions, but worked really well. And I think service is great. The only thing I would say is that not all our tenants probably do know this opportunity is open to them. And I, for one, know of at least one that really would have benefited from this. But like so many in that generation who have been council tenants for so long, they just assume they don't want to take advantage. And this is how they've always coped, and this is how they expect to cope. And I think somewhere along the line, we may think about trying to advertise the service more widely to give people in need the opportunity of what is something that's very special. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just to come back on that if possible. I think that's a really important point and something that we have spoken about. So we have tried to do a small promotion around it. I actually think the best promotion is going to be internal promotion. So, you know, you talked about our tradespeople going in and out of people's properties, our neighbourhood officers. I think it's really promoting it to them that if they see someone who actually may benefit within the home, that, you know, they can give them a, you know, just a leaflet or something to actually promote that as well. So we kind of head it off from two different areas.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to add any comments? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to the next item. It's item number 8, and it's mutual exchange policy. Kerry, I believe. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The policy seeks to provide a clear, consistent and fair approach to mutual exchange. This policy aims to provide tenants and staff with clear information on the requirements for a mutual exchange of policies. It sets out the circumstances for assigning and surrendering a tenancy and sets out the legal grounds for refusing an exchange. Gravesham Borough Council had an existing mutual exchange policy, and this was adopted in 2023. This required a full review to ensure that it was in line with current legislation and was clear and transparent for tenants and staff. In addition to the policy, the team have created a useful information section for tenants to help support them with any potential issues that they may not have had taken into account when planning a mutual exchange. To support residents in meeting their rental obligations, we've also introduced a new section in the policy aligned with practices adopted by other housing authorities, requiring that 2 weeks' rent be paid in advance as part of the mutual exchange process. The tenancy agreement states that rent must be paid in advance. By clearly defining this requirement within the policy, we aim to reinforce the importance of paying rent in advance and assisting residents in managing their tenant responsibilities effectively. The housing service already funds the Home Swapper platform for our tenants, and we have now implemented MRI swap tracker system. This digital platform ensures that the applications are managed more efficiently, meet the legal obligations, and creates greater transparency for both tenants and staff. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. I know I actually emailed you about this, but I'd like to say it publicly as well. Can you just clarify for me, please, the difference between the secure tenancy and assured tenancy? Because I found that a little bit hard to understand. Thank you.
So basically, secure tenancies are the tenancies that are granted by a local authority. They are called lifetime tenancies. So effectively, once someone is granted a secure tenancy, they're given a lifetime tenancy unless they breach the tenancy. And the grounds that in relation to that tenancy ending can only be ended by one of the grounds stated in the Housing Act of 1985. Assured tenancies are the tenancies that can only be granted by housing associations. So the mutual exchange policy allows our residents as secure tenants, if they decide to, they may decide that they want to do a swap with someone in a housing association tenancy, and this is the policy that will enable them to do so.
Thank you. Very clear. Thank you. Anyone like to raise anything? Councillor Mead.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair, and apologies for being a few minutes late. The TfL strike got the better of me today in London. If my understanding is correct, in the report it says there's no formal right of appeal for tenants looking to go through the exchange process. Is that usual not having a right of appeal, and how will we ensure that there's fairness and transparency in the process with that?
So there are statutory grounds for refusing an exchange, and they are set out in legislation. So they're set out in Schedule 3 of the Housing Act 1985. It is very clear, the legislation, on what we can and can't do. So we will follow that process. We have this is a very detailed policy. It gives very clear guidance to our residents. I think we've gone over and above really in terms of all the things they need to think about in terms of a mutual exchange. And because we now have dedicated software that can assist us with that process, it is very transparent. Our letters are very clear, and we can guide our residents through that process so that they feel that they are supported when they want to mutually exchange with another resident.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Thank you, Kerry. And Councillor Croxton.
Yes, I very much welcome this policy, because in the dim, distant past, when Councillor Milner and myself first became councillors, this was a very difficult problem. I remember a number of occasions when tenants did try to move or exchange, and we seemed to be mired down in endless problems. So I do welcome this. Have you any indication of how many occasions this will happen or has happened in the past? Not the problems, but the mutual exchanges.
So I don't think haven't got the figures to hand, but what I can do is afterwards I can provide those to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Milner.
Thank you. Can I just clarify that this is completely different to somebody wanting to downsize, please?
Yes, absolutely. So the mutual exchange policy is literally a swap. So if you decide that actually your secure Gravesham tenancy, you've decided that actually because of a legitimate reason you want to swap with another resident, you can go on to Home Swapper, you can find another resident that is also looking to do that move, and you can basically decide between yourselves that you'd like to swap your tenancies. And this is just a policy to facilitate that.
Thank you, Councillor Mead.
So thank you very much, Chair. When considering performance or future performance monitoring against the report, in Section 8 it mentions a 42-day timeframe that we have to abide by as a local authority. Is that a statutory timeline? And if so, what are the consequences and penalties of us not meeting that timeframe? And are we confident that we have enough resources in place at the moment to make sure that we will meet that 42-day calendar? I think it's 42 calendar days, isn't it, that we have?
So it is a statutory deadline. We do meet that timeline at the moment. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Yes, thank you. So it's how we will monitor that going forward, and if we've got enough resources in place to maintain meeting that target.
Yes, so we do have enough resources at the moment in terms of how we monitor that. Because we have a dedicated software system, we have an automated system that will enable us to manage those cases effectively. So we do have assurance that those cases are being monitored and tracked through a software system.
Sorry, and the other point of my question as well is what are the potential consequences to us as a local council if we don't meet the 42 calendar day?
I may have to get back to you on that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Miller.
Just a very quick one. I know in some cases that tenants inform the council if they've done like an extra radiator or something like that, and they are solely responsible for that new radiator because it wasn't put in for the council. If by any chance somebody does a mutual exchange and they take on that property that has probably got an extra radiator or something, does that responsibility then go on to the new tenant that has done the exchange?
So with regards to any mutual exchanges, parts of the policy and the process, we would have a surveyor who would go out and have a look at those properties. But I will hand over to Nicole, who will speak in detail because obviously she heads up the asset part of the business.
Yes, so Kerry's correct. There is a mutual exchange inspection which happens prior to the exchange happening. So that will be a surveyor and usually the neighbourhood officer, and they will go around the property and look at any items that's outstanding, which is landlord responsibility, and anything that is tenant responsibility as well. Also looking for things that are we'd deem as non-standard, so new light fittings, bespoke kitchen, and then it's quite clearly laid out to both parties who will take responsibility for that going forward. Doesn't always work, in theory that's fantastic. However, there are cases where a tenant will have a lovely bespoke kitchen, integrated appliances, and when it comes to move day and that person moving in and those appliances have gone and actually the kitchen isn't quite as it seems and there are hazards present, then obviously we take a pragmatic approach in dealing with those matters. There is a policy that 99% follows, but there is that flexibility. There are some times that we just need to be sensible about it.
Okay, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. You say about the secure tenancy. So when these exchanges happen, obviously they're breaking their tenancy to form a new tenancy. So would that new tenancy still remain a secure tenancy, as in a lifelong tenancy, or does it become a different type?
So there is actually a part of the policy which details that. So I'm just trying to look for the correct page. So this is a very complex, very, very complex area of law. But in terms of, so it's on, I'm just looking for the actual page in the pack, page 83. So you will see that there, in Appendix 2 of the actual policy itself, it has the details upon which, because there are different ways that those tenancies can be. They're either done by way of an assignment by way of deed, whereby each tenant effectively signs a deed and they effectively swap over their tenancy agreements. So the secure one may take over the assured tenancy agreement and the assured will take over the secure, because they're both lifetime tenancies and they literally take on, even with the same name of the other person they've swapped with, they just have a deed to say they've taken on that agreement. And there are other types that are surrendered and re-granted. But the majority of our residents will be this. They will be the swaps, because it's a secure tenancy to assured. It's unlikely that we would have someone who wants to give up a lifetime tenancy, for example, and will effectively take on a tenancy which is of a lower stature. So something, say, not a lifetime tenancy, say a fixed term tenancy. It's more rare. It's unusual.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kerry. Anyone else want to comment or ask a question? No? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 9. I think this is you again, Kerry, is it? It's the tenant satisfaction measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to present the tenant satisfaction measures. All councils and housing providers must measure tenant satisfaction every year under the Regulator of Social Housing's TSM standard. The survey covers key areas such as repairs and safety, communication and how fairly tenants are treated, how we manage complaints and antisocial behaviour, how well we maintain communal areas, and our overall service and neighbourhood contribution. The survey was conducted between the 5th of November 2024 and the 4th of February 2025, and 742 surveys were conducted with our tenants. We used various methods, including telephone and online options, and there were also some face-to-face responses given. The responses came from a range of age, gender, management area and property types, and therefore we can be confident that the results reflect the views of our tenant population. This is important because it provides reliable, independent data showing what tenants think about our services. The key findings from the report were that the overall satisfaction of our residents in relation to our housing services is 71%. Repairs satisfaction was 77%. Safe home satisfaction was 77%. There were low satisfaction with regards to complaint handling, which was 31%. However, that was an increase on the year before. And the antisocial behaviour response was 50%, which had reduced by 4% from the previous year. Satisfaction, we've noticed that satisfaction increases with age and is particularly acute. This is particularly acute with independent living tenants. In conclusion, whilst our tenant satisfaction levels have increased or decreased in areas compared to last year, the overall satisfaction level has reduced to 71% compared to 75.4% the year before. It is, however, important to note that there has been continued promotion around the expectations of landlords as we educate our tenants, and therefore it is positive that they are aware of our aims and expectations of an exceptional landlord, even if there are still areas that we need to work on. In addition, this is a perception-based survey which can be influenced by a range of external factors and tenant-specific experiences. Furthermore, this year's responses came from a different group of tenants, so you cannot survey the same ones within a 12-month period, which may also contribute to the variation in results. Nevertheless, we recognise there are continued improvements required in specific areas, and we are actively implementing targeted improvements to enhance the overall tenant experience and satisfaction. And some examples of this can be found in the next agenda item within the annual report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. Any questions? Councillor Mead, go ahead, please.
So thank you, Chair. It's clear that there is a lot of work that's going on to improve tenant satisfaction, which I think is really encouraging, actually. there are those two areas that you pulled out, one of them being antisocial behaviour, the other one being complaint handling. Just of the complaint handling, do we know how many of those complaints actually relate to antisocial behaviour issues? And when it comes to antisocial behaviour issues, it's obviously something that is to an extent involving other external partners. So Gravesham Borough Council will often have to work with the police, with local education authorities, etc. when it comes to dealing with some of those complex antisocial behaviour issues. Do we feel that we're getting enough support off of our partners at the moment? And is there anything that we can do to strengthen that wraparound partnership work? I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you.
So I don't have the, in terms of complaint handling, I don't have the statistics with me with regards to the breakdown for antisocial behaviour, but we would be happy to provide those to you. With regards to antisocial behaviour, we recognise that there are challenges. We have already implemented an antisocial behaviour improvement plan. We've done an audit of all existing antisocial behaviour cases because we're trying to learn to try to find out where the weaknesses are and where we have gone wrong. We are also completing complaint analysis to look through the existing complaints to see what our tenants are telling us. So there's a whole host of work that's being done there. We recognise that that's an area for us that we need to work on. What I would say is, across the sector, in terms of antisocial behaviour and complaints handling, residents expect those things to be handled well. They expect those things to be handled well, but they're not going to thank us for it, because unfortunately, when you're in the middle of complex antisocial behaviour, that if you're suffering from antisocial behaviour, it can be a detriment to your health, to your well-being, and it can be really difficult. So they are areas that we need to work on, and we do have partnerships that we do have active partnerships, and we are continuing to strengthen those.
Thank you. Can I ask one question on the dissatisfaction with repairs? There was a number, 119 responses, but I think the context is required there, because in terms of, I know you deal with thousands of repairs. So even though 119 seems a lot, in context, it might actually not be that many. Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, so last financial year, during that period that was reported on, it was just under 24,000 repairs. And that doesn't include any gas repairs as well. So that's separate, which could actually also have an impact on people's feedback.
Okay, so that's less than, is that about half? It's 0.05%. So it's actually, I know it's for those people, it's really crucial, but it's a tiny percentage of the overall picture.
It is, yeah. And just to give some context as well, after every repair visit that we undertake, a tenant is sent a text message where they can rate their engineer out of 5 stars and also give any feedback. So that's an instantaneous result that we get. Anything below 2 stars, the tenant will get a call back to see if we can resolve the issue. We also call around 20% of our appointments that we undertake as well to get verbal feedback. Have we done the job? Is it what you was expecting? As well. So we're confident that, in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, because 24,000 repairs is quite a lot. And I think it really shows how much you're trying to improve all the time. There's like incremental improvements, because to face these, and these people were dissatisfied, and this is what we're going to do about it, that's really good. But I just wanted to set the context.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back on Councillor Mead's point regarding the complaints. I think, unfortunately, you weren't able to make the last committee, and that's when we presented on the 4th of June our annual complaints and improvement report. In that, it was confirmed that we had 116 stage 1 complaints, of which 10 detailed antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, that's very, yeah, okay. Any, Councillor Croxton?
Yes, I think looking at this report, I'm really quite encouraged. What I would like to have seen at some point is a trend in some way over years. I know it's very difficult to do that because you're presumably dealing with different people in each survey, but I'm not altogether surprised by Well, by reports from what I've seen, because I very much value work and services the council provides. But it would have been nice to see some sort of comparison over time. With regard to complaints, I think that is a disappointing figure, and I'm sure we all recognise that as a fact. But there again, I suspect that most people who are going down the road of complaints undoubtedly do become increasingly dissatisfied. Well, they probably start off dissatisfied and become even more dissatisfied over time. But I would like to ask, what measures do you see taking forward in the short term, at least, to try to do something about what is quite a disappointing figure?
Just by way of clarity, in terms of complaints, okay. Do you want to lead on that, Vicky, because you've been dealing with the analysis?
Thank you, Kerry. So complaint handling, like you say, is very complex. It's very disappointing that people feel they need to complain to us. We don't always get it right, but we do try and resolve where we have made errors. We've been looking really carefully at complaints, and I've done some work with Karina to analyse our complaints, to understand any trends that we've got. What we want to do is bring complaints forward to the Housing Committee moving forward, so that you can see this every quarter that we have. We're also doing a piece of work with Campbell Tickell, which is a soliciting firm who actually do some testing against the Ombudsman Code and the social housing regulations. We'll see if we can pull out any learning from that. And I'm waiting for the feedback. So once I've got that feedback, we can come to Housing Committee and share what we've learned.
I very much welcome that. I think it'd be useful for a committee to actually start to look at the source of complaints. And I'm not sure we'd ever find a resolution to help you, but it would be better for us to be, should we say, better informed. But my other question was the trends. What's your gut feeling about trends? Are the tenants more satisfied now than they have been, do you think, in the past? Or am I just painting a rosy picture?
Well, given that we actually improved just slightly in that area, it would indicate we're going in the right direction. But I think there's always an opportunity to learn more. Like I said to you, we don't always get it right. But I think you're right. We need to be more transparent. We need to come and present, identify the trends, work out where we can improve. Is there training issues? Is there something we're not delivering? So your input as members will be really helpful.
Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we'll always, over the years, this committee and the team has improved on enormous amount of different aspects of what they've done and they've achieved, and I welcome that, and it's very good. But we're always going to get the difficult tenant, and that will complain whether the repairs or whatever is satisfactory. You're always going to get somebody that's not satisfied. With all the will in the world, you will not please everybody. So don't be disheartened in what you're doing, because you're doing a fantastic job, in my opinion, and it has improved greatly in the last few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. One other thing I'd like to say, Councillor Croxton, is that I pick random complaints out and we analyse them. I don't know who they are. We just pick like numbers, and then I analyse them with the team, and then we meet out and discuss if how it's been dealt with, and if we feel we agree how So it's kind of like a triangulation process to make it fair, and also to make sure that it's any patterns that arise we'll discuss, and that's how we've been developing over the last few months. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Mead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I certainly echo the points that Councillor Pearson just made. Just wanting to dig slightly deeper on the antisocial behaviour, and I recognise through the report that I think it's around 14 to 15% of tenants have experienced antisocial behaviour. So in the grand scheme of things, what we're getting back is, on the whole, not a huge problem. But for those residents, those 15% that do experience antisocial behaviour, it is a major problem. And it's amazing the difference to quality of life that not being able to open a window for your children on a hot summer's day because the neighbour is smoking weed, or problems like that can negatively affect the quality of life of our tenants. And what does concern me slightly when reading the report is it goes on to say that only 50% are satisfied with the council's handling of those complaints when it comes to antisocial behaviour, which is why earlier I was asking about our interaction with other partners in this, because as I said just a few minutes ago, I appreciate that antisocial behaviour issues are not just a Gravesham Borough Council problem, and it's not just for us as a council to solve them. So when we receive those antisocial behaviour complaints or concerns by our tenants, are we constantly horizon scanning those complaints, looking for trends, and how are we feeding that back into other statutory partners? Because I believe we need a bit more of a transparency and indeed an understanding so that we can manage expectations when it comes to holds up that others may be having as we try and tackle these problems together.
I completely agree with you. In terms of antisocial behaviour, you know, it really does affect our residents, and it's really sad that obviously any residents, you know, suffer from these problems. In terms of us working with partners, we do have a very active partnership with the local police. We request for, you know, disclosure. We do joint working. They come along to our housing hub. So we do have some very, you know, intricate, and we do work closely, particularly with Kent Police, obviously, in relation to various matters. As part of our antisocial behaviour improvement plan, we are moving forward with various steps, and I'm all ears to hear any you know, any other guidance or anything else that you think we should add into it. And looking at our partnership, we will be analysing all of our partnerships as part of that to see how we can bolster that. But we are really keen to improve this as an area. What I would say is that antisocial behaviour across the board, across all local authorities and housing providers, is a problem. And if a resident is suffering from antisocial behaviour, they will complain about it. And obviously it's for us as housing providers to not only give lip service that we will sort this problem, but actually go out and sort it. So, you know, from a practical and operational perspective, I would encourage anyone who's, you know, suffering from antisocial behaviour, please report it to us. Please provide us with the evidence, and we will take action as against any residents that are breaching their tenancies.
Yeah, please do. I was also going to add that one member is very interested in antisocial behaviour, and when we presented our tenancy management policy at Cabinet, we reinforced areas around enforcement because it was felt that we weren't robust enough or strong enough with our wording. So we've made a conscious effort to actually ensure that it's clear that we will take action. It makes people's lives miserable, and we need to make sure that people live in harmony.
Yeah, I'd just like to, before I pass to you, there's two strands there that are kind of the same strand. There's like a push and pull, isn't there? So if someone's suffering from it, it's horrific. But there's also the person who's perpetrating. And I think it's your point too. Some of these people may be residents. And I think then the enforcement has to come in, because there's no point in getting a slap on the wrist. It's totally unacceptable to be treating other humans in that way, I think. So I think we've got a dual duty of care and also enforcement. I'm really big on enforcement. It's not acceptable to me. So I agree with you 100%. Councillor Croxton.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say I agree entirely with the point you're making, and Councillor Mead. What I would say, coming back in a sense to trend, I did go to one of the housing hubs, which, can I say, a wonderful innovation. And in the area I represent, had you done something like this with the police and with officers, let's say 30 years ago, you would have been inundated with people with dissatisfaction, if indeed they would have ever come out to talk to you. On the occasion I went there was the groundswell of opinion going around talking to tenants was very positive. They liked where they were. They valued and appreciated the community around them. They're not saying it's all good. It's not. But what I'm saying is that is a very distinct trend towards improvement, and one which I certainly would congratulate officers on, particularly in recent years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roxton. I'd like to just pick up your point on improvement, and I'd like to offer this opportunity to everyone in the committee. If there's things that you think that, you know, strategies and ways forward, please feel free in these committees to say them, because we're really trying to hold up ourselves to be accountable. And this is like a scrutiny aspect as we go along as well. And we're not going to always get it right. And we're happy to, my thing is always robust conversations make stronger outcomes. And we're happy to, and we welcome robust conversations because we want to try and improve constantly. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I am wondering if there is something that we can put in place, because there's not only antisocial behaviour from people, we are getting a lot of complaints about antisocial behaviour from foxes. I've got a lot of residents coming to me saying that their car cables are being chewed through, and there's other residents that are encouraging the foxes and feeding them. So I'm wondering if maybe that is some sort of avenue for improvement that we could implement. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a conversation, isn't it? Especially if it's causing disruption. Yeah, so we could take that offline.
Thank you. Very good. Anyone want to comment on anything else on this? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is item number 10, which is the annual council housing report. And that is Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So in line with the new consumer standards, the regulator of social housing is looking for housing providers to engage and communicate with their tenants and leaseholders on matters that are important to them in a more creative and meaningful way. The annual report gives an overview of where money has been spent, our performance, including tenant satisfaction measures that Kerry's just covered, and the engagement activities undertaken throughout last financial year. I wanted to draw out a couple of areas within the annual report that I think is really important. Under the We Said We Did, we invested in 6 new neighbourhood offices, reducing patch sizes to around 400 homes. Again, going back to the conversations around antisocial behaviour that we've just had, this will prove to be really important. This supports stronger communities, improves tenant satisfaction, and helps us meet the social housing regulations. We also created a new tenant engagement team sitting behind me in the public gallery, including a manager and 2 officers to lead on resident voice, shape strategy and support meaningful engagement in line with regulations. The report also includes our plans for this financial year, and many of these items will make their way to Housing Committee for your comments. An ASB improvement plan, again, going back to the areas that we've just highlighted. A tenant digital portal to ensure everything is convenient and in one place, and that will be definitely something that we'll be bringing to committee to demonstrate. We'll be reviewing the end-to-end time for repairs to identify any improvements which could be made. We're looking to introduce a dedicated tenant engagement space within the town centre as well, which the team that we've just spoken about will be working from. We're having a hard focus on targeting tenancy frauds, looking at complaint analysis to improve how we're handling complaints. We'll be creating refreshed and reviewed tenant handbooks that will be available for all tenants. We're accelerating the delivery of stock condition surveys to ensure that we have up-to-date data on our homes, as well as reviewing the resources within the repairs and assets team to ensure it's robust and ready for the many legislation changes that are oncoming. We'll also ensure that we have key information about our tenants so that we can effectively communicate with them and support those that require alternative arrangements. So an annual report is a crucial document for social housing landlords as it promotes transparency, accountability and strategic improvement, benefiting both tenants and stakeholders. We hope the report is a clear picture of our performance and practices and achievements, and believe that, this is going to be a really meaningful document for our tenants. And you'd have seen that the agenda actually got republished. And the reason for that was we was really keen to hit this committee cycle. We didn't want to leave it until the next one, because this is very much about getting the information out to our tenants. And we were still working on it right up to the wire to make it the best it could possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I hand over to you, Councillor Mead, I just wanted to clarify a few meetings ago, we talked about patch size. I don't know if you remember, we said that there was a huge amount of caseload and we felt that the service wasn't as good as it could be. So we've now have more resource in that area. And as Nicole said, the patch size is down to 400 plus, which it was hundreds more than that per housing or neighbourhood officer, which is obviously best practice to have fewer and you can engage better. The other thing I'd like to reiterate and really pull out is fraud. We all know as councillors knocking on houses, if you're in a council house, the expectation is you're that tenant. And this is something we've discussed really because we're really clear that if you're actually subletting or renting out or pretending you're living there, that's fraud. And we are really strong against this. And we've said this is one of our things going forward that we really want to look at and action and enforce, because it's not right. There are lots of people on the register who would feel very upset if they felt anybody was in a house that shouldn't be there or pretending to be in a house when that shouldn't be there. So I just wanted to make that clear. I know Nicole's mentioned lots of things, but that's something that we really feel very strongly about, morally and obviously fiscally as well, in terms of people paying rent. Okay, any comments or Councillor Mead? Yes.
So thank you, Chair, and I really welcome your comments on fraud, because given the pressures that we have on our housing register and the housing crisis that we have at the moment, it's fundamentally important that we have a strong grip on that. And I think it's really encouraging that you raised those points there. And thank you for the report. So in terms of its layout, its clarity, I think it's absolutely excellent. In fact, it's one of the best reports that I've seen come to a housing committee. So congratulations to everyone involved in that, because I think we really do owe it to our residents and our tenants to provide that clarity and to showcase not only the good work that's going on, but be open and honest where there are those acute challenges. And I'm really pleased to read in the report that we've achieved 100% compliance when it comes to fire doors, asbestos and gas services, because having safe homes is absolutely critical, and we should be incredibly proud that we've got that 100% compliance, because I know some other local authorities have really struggled in those areas against the cost pressures that they face. I'm also really pleased to hear about the success that the housing team have had when it's come to securing external funding and grants, particularly the 2.1 million to improve the EPC ratings of, I think it's 240 homes. And just putting the question out there, obviously we've had that initial success, 2.1 million, 240 homes. That is only though a small dent in our overall property portfolio. And it's just, how optimistic are you that there are further grants out there, and do we plan to continue at that pace to make sure that those EPC ratings continue to climb positively over the next few years?
Thank you, Councillor Mead. So in terms of how confident I am about future funding, I'm not. The last round where we were successful for the 2.1 million was part of Warm Homes Social Housing 3. I keep changing the title, and they were really clear when we put the bid in that this is likely to be the last round of funding for some time. It stretches 3 years. So, you know, it's great. There's 240 homes that will benefit, but that still leaves us with the rest. So recently there's been a consultation from government around minimum energy efficiency standards. So they're proposing that the deadline to get your property to an EPCC will be 2030. If it will cost more than £10,000 to get there, then you'll get an extra 10 years to be able to put that in place, so that there is some sort of wriggle room. However, it's really likely that if it doesn't meet an EPCC, it's like it will be classed as a non-decent property due to thermal comfort, more chance of damp and mould in the property. So the work is just beginning for us, really. Whilst we've got the 240 homes that we need to deliver, the next step for us is looking at what we've got left, what that will look like, and how we get there, and how much that's likely to cost, and how many of those properties may not ever get there. Because there will be some, because of we've got properties in areas where, you know, it's a conservation area, for example. The construction doesn't lend itself particularly well. So there's a lot of work to do. But in terms of funding, it's unlikely that there'll be anything else for the foreseeable future. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. No, I thought that would very much be the case. And without wanting to add to the significant workload in this area, I do think through you, Chair, it might be useful, not for the immediate next meeting, but further down the line of this committee, to perhaps have a separate report on that brought to this committee, so that as members we can properly understand those not only external challenges that we face in terms of deadlines, but the potential cost implications that we will have as a council, so that we're prepared for that as far in advance as we can be. And I know that there are several members on my side, and I think probably across the chamber, that would have ideas of how we could not only contribute to the ideas, but also some of the lobbying mechanisms through various external boards that some of us sit on to potentially help the council there. Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Thank you so much. I'd like to add as well that as a council, obviously our first duty of care is safety. And I know Councillor Mead has mentioned this, but I'd just like to commend the work you've done on the fire safety side, because it's crucial that people feel safe in their homes, first of all, as well. So thank you to Nicole and Bal and your team on that. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Wells.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask how this goes out to residents. Does it go out in hard copy? Does it go out digitally? And also, just to sort of echo Councillor Mead's comments on it being an excellent report. It's really well laid out, really clearly worded. As someone who works in comms as my day job, it's really a good example of a really kind of clearly written, informative annual report. I did just wonder if it had been sort of fully checked for accessibility, because there are just a couple of areas where there's kind of white on pale pink or dark pink on top of slightly lighter pink and things like that might be a little bit difficult to read, and whether that'll be sort of checked as well, just to make sure that it's kind of really clear for everyone. But other than that, absolutely excellent report, I thought.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So there will be an accessible version as well. There always is as part of our documents, although it doesn't look as nice to present to you guys at committee. There will be a mix of how we promote this and get it out to tenants, so a mixture of hard copy on our website. We've got a WhatsApp group as well, so we'll be sending the link out on there. We've got Go Vocal, we've got My Building Safety app for high rise, so we're hoping to get it out far and wide. And this will be the first annual report where we'll be able to get the tenant panel to review it as well. So before we come into this committee meeting, what we spoke about was, you know, we think it's great, we think it looks great, but actually we've never really tested it in terms of content. So, you know, they may look at it and go, so what? Why are you telling me this? That's not what I'm interested in. So this will be a really good opportunity for us to, you know, test what it is that people would like to see. So I'm hopeful it will, you know, tick their boxes. We've followed similar formats to sort of other housing providers' annual reports. So it's you know, it's not particularly reinventing the wheel, but it will be good to get feedback this year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Milner.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the page where it's got caretaking services. I think our caretakers do an excellent job. I've got a caretaker because I live in council flat, as you know. and they do go above and beyond their duties because they get up ever so early to put the bins out, then they have to come back and take the bins back in, and they do that on at least twice a week where I live, and I spec all over the borough. And then I do believe they go over the borough anyway once they've done their jobs in the flats where they are or the properties, and then they go out and about. So if you could pass that on, I'll be, really pleased because they do an excellent job, and you can talk to them, and they give excellent advice if you need it, point you in the right direction, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think they do need congratulating on what they do.
Thank you, Councillor Milner. I will definitely pass that on to the Head of Estate Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milner. I think it's right to celebrate the work that people do, everyday people, just doing their job really well. Thank you. Councillor Croxton.
Yeah, very quick one. I know we've discussed this before. Just resolving your concerns. Now, whereas I appreciate that many initial complaints really are just about a service request, I just wonder how a stage 1 complaint is investigated and how you can move to stage 2, and again, how is that and who by investigated?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Croxton. So a stage 1 complaint is investigated by a manager to determine the facts of what has or hasn't happened, and they will give a response. If the customer is dissatisfied with that response, they have the right to go to stage 2. And it could be that some part of their stage 1 wasn't addressed in stage 2 wasn't addressed in the stage 1. However, we do make an effort to ring the tenant to find out if we've understood the complaint correctly, so we can do a thorough acknowledgement letter. So when the tenant receives their acknowledgement letter of their complaint, it should cover absolutely everything of our interpretation of what they're asking us or complaining about. So they have the opportunity to go to stage 2 if they're not happy. If after that stage 2 they're still dissatisfied, then they have the right to go to the Ombudsman.
Councillor Milner.
Thank you. I had a text from the Borough Council about joining a link, and unfortunately, I did think it was a scam, so I deleted it, and then it comes through again, and I deleted it again. Yes, I would like to be part of it, but if you could just explain to me how that could get over to. Perhaps I'm not the only council tenant that actually deleted it because thinking it's a scam. I'm very wary on what comes through on my phone. I'm sure I'm not the only person. But if you could explain that a little more, and I will be joining it, but once I think that it's not a scam.
Thank you, Councillor Milner. So we set up a WhatsApp channel mainly so that we can get key messages out in a different method, because not everyone has internet access. We obviously talk about it at our housing hubs. It's input in our Your Home magazine. This will be the second time it's running with the WhatsApp information in there to make our tenants aware. If any tenants want any support, we can absolutely arrange for that to happen. But yeah, I can understand your caution, and you should absolutely be cautious. But there is a Gravesham Council tenant WhatsApp channel, and it is legitimate.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other points on this issue? No. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is item number 10, and that's Vic.
Thank you, Chair. This is the performance report for April to June. And I want to just pull out some key areas that may be of interest. So it's obviously really positive that private sector housing have served the most amount of notices because they've identified safety hazards in the private sector housing. That's positive that we are taking action. That's the highest it's been for 2 years, which is great. In addition, the total number of HMOs is 94, again, the highest it's ever been. So that's a really positive, good news story within that world. The other areas I wanted to pull out is the average time to relet council housing. That's the lowest it's been in 2 years, which is fantastic. and credit to Jay Nichols, who runs that service. And I also wanted to draw out PI 31, which is total households in temporary accommodation. This, of course, would worry members straight away seeing a higher figure, but I want to add some reassurance that there is a piece of work going on at the moment through Keenham, and it's actually a positive because as numbers go up, please do not assume that these are all nightly paid and going to be costing us money. There is a plan in place, and they are going to be bringing a paper to Housing Committee either next time or the time after, just to sort of air temporary accommodation where we are, and to give you some reassurance about those figures. So don't be too alarmed by that, although we recognise it is a rise. Financially, it shouldn't be. And they were the key things that I wanted to pull out the report, but I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mead.
So thank you, Chair, and it won't surprise you that it is the temporary accommodation figure that I do want to pull out of the report, because it is something that I've noticed a casework rise in, and it's a very sad situation to have to deal with residents who are effectively homeless by the time that they approach for help. And I'm just wondering if we're doing any horizon scanning at the moment to consider the effect that the London boroughs are having on us, not only just in the Gravesham area, but on the wider Kent area when it comes to the placement of people from London in Kent, because of course that saturates the availability of affordable properties here in Kent and pushes up the price we have to pay for nightly accommodation for residents. And do we have the figures to hand? And if not, could I have them outside of the meeting for what is the average stay, nightly stay in temporary accommodation for residents in Gravesham at the moment? And a further question, I'd like to know whether or not, when it comes to the Homes for Ukraine scheme and indeed the Afghan resettlement scheme, when their housing situations break down and we owe them a duty of care under homelessness, are we being adequately and fully compensated by government when we are caused to use temporary accommodation for those residents? And given that we have seen this spike in numbers and that we are now approaching the colder winter months, would it be timely for maybe a refresher sheet to go out to all members of the council just to explain how temporary accommodation works, who the contact points are, and what we should do as members when we do get those 11 p.m. calls from local residents who are due to be evicted in the morning? So I think we owe it to our residents as councillors to be fully informed. And I know that a lot of work's going on in this area at the moment. And I just want to make sure that when residents approach us as councillors, that every single councillor is aware of these updates and the process that has to be followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. I'll try and remember all of your questions. Just around temporary accommodation, there is a piece of work that's going on across Kent around temporary accommodation and the pressures around temporary accommodation, including cost, placements, supply issues. So when that piece of work is completed, we will cascade that down. With regards to average stay, I have got that information to hand. It is important to highlight that whilst numbers in temporary accommodation are slowly increasing, the average length of stay in nightly paid accommodation has come down, and it's currently 24 weeks, which is down from our average of 27 in recent months. However, the overall stay is slightly higher for those that are in our own accommodation, which is 89 for those that are in GBC accommodation. As Vic has touched on, the numbers are increasing because we're utilising more of our own stock with regards to temporary accommodation. And that is, as we say, to address some of the financial pressures that the General Fund is facing. I can't remember the rest of your questions. Sorry.
Thank you. So it was Homes for Ukraine and Afghan resettlement, if we're being adequately compensated by government, and then if something could be circulated to members, particularly as we approach the winter months, so that all members are fully abreast of how we can best help residents facing homelessness.
Thank you. Yeah, so I will collate some information with regards to the demand on the service for Ukrainian nationals and Afghan nationals. The local authority has received funding to help those groups, and we still have funding available to be able to help those households. And the numbers approaching are minimal. And what we try to do is make sure that where placements come to an end, that we try to find alternative accommodation as opposed to placing those households into temporary accommodation.
I just wanted to add as well, you talk about the placements within Borough and across Kent. That has historically always been an issue. And the difficulty that we have is that there's only a legal obligation for a council to notify us if they're making a temporary accommodation placement. So there is no obligation on any authority to notify the host authority if they're accessing the private sector. And therefore that becomes a challenge because you're only ever going to get part of the picture. So a frustration for many, and particularly for Gravesham, who are on the outskirts of London with potentially a cheap private sector.
Any other comments? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to item number 12, which is any other business.
Compliance dashboard.
Sorry, apologies, that's me. So number 11, the compliance dashboard is Vic, sorry. Sorry, Belle.
Thank you, Chair. The compliance report for Q1 has been reformatted following members' feedback regarding the layout at Q4. So going on to fire risk assessments, for Q1, all 17 fire risk assessments were completed and we had 13 overdue actions at the time. All the overdue actions related to combustible screening on balconies or residence items left on escape routes in residential blocks. To reduce these actions in the future, the building safety team have used the Housing Hub resident engagement events to speak to residents directly to reinforce the message around balcony and communal area safety. We have also drafted a new communal areas and balcony safe policy, which when finalised will be communicated to all residents. Gas servicing and safety checks are at 54% complete, and the programme for the year will be completed by the end of Q3. The asbestos re-inspections to communal areas have been completed to 48 residential blocks with 140 remaining. A proportion of the re-inspections are also now being carried out in-house by a member of the building safety team who recently completed his certification to conduct asbestos surveys and inspections. Electrical testing, GPC has carried out electrical testing for a number of years as best practice. However, from November 2025, social housing landlords will be subject to new requirements for electrical safety inspections. These new requirements have been long anticipated and move the expectations regarding inspections from best practice to law, aligning standards with the private rented sector. The mould and damp dashboard has been put on hold while the team digests the new regulatory requirements following AWAB's law and to ensure we are reporting on the published performance indicators as set out in the legislation. That concludes the Q1 summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has anyone any comments they'd like to make? Councillor Mead.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I really like the new layout of the report, so thank you very much for that. It's incredibly clear. Just on the electrical safety testing, I read in the report that currently experiencing difficulties with 214 properties in terms of access, and that if necessary, you're going to pursue action through the courts. If it gets to that stage where we are pursuing court action, are we as a local authority able to recover the legal costs as part of that process? Because 214 individual cases, God forbid, if they all have to end up in the courts, that's a considerable hefty legal bill that we will have to fork out for.
Hello. So as part of the litigation process, we're always able to ask for our costs. So that could include fixed costs if there were a fixed cost regime, or hourly rated if we were to use, for example, external solicitors. We do have an in-house legal service, so we would be able to put bills of costs in with regards to any litigation. The issue that we may have, however, is recovery. As we know, a lot of our residents may not necessarily have recourse to funds. There is a cost of living crisis, and as to whether we will ever actually see that money back, That's not a guarantee. So whilst we can ask for the orders and money judgments in respect of litigation costs, we can't always guarantee that we will get them.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on that point, Councillor Mead, because I think some people don't understand that there are people who won't let the council in. And that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? To do the actual safety checks to help them live in a safe environment. So I think it may seem to us counterintuitive, but there are people who are like that. So what we need to do, if we're living in the community, is encourage them, because it's for their own safety and it helps everybody. Yeah, okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on to the last item, number 12, please. And that's any other business. Sorry, Ben, have we had any other business? No, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Number 13 is exclusions. And there's no part B, so that's fine. So I'd like to thank everyone very much for coming. Thank you to all of our panel who've come along and our engagement team as well. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the officers and managers who've worked so hard to make today a very satisfactory meeting. Thank you so much.